Good morning.
Good morning, Rebecca.
Daryl, it's good to see your face. I'm glad you're safe. We met on a plane, just for context, I don't know, a couple of years ago now.
It's been probably 4 now, Rebecca. 5, actually. It's been 5.
Oh, it's wild. Like I said, Daryl and I met on a plane. He's an incredible diversity and inclusion speaker. I've been doing this Fearless Chats series every week, and it's a series where people jump on and I ask them sort of random questions, and the idea is to challenge the fears that we have about who we are, what we are. And the reality is right now it just feels pretty unfearless, because there's so many other things that are going on that we need to be paying attention to. So what I wanted to do is get on and just have a conversation about what's going on in the world, and ask some of the questions that I think need to be asked, because I have a lot of friends. I'm obviously white. I'm an ally, and I don't know what my role is. So for people that are wondering what they can do with this color skin, what should we be doing right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, first, Rebecca, thanks for the opportunity to just voice some things that, just inside of me. But what should white people be doing right now? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that white people, what I'm seeing, through even just social media posts with white friends of mine and acquaintances who are very upset over the rioting that happened, but were like crickets when George Floyd was being snuffed out. I mean, just crickets on that. But you really upset about the rioting? That's just like your focus is on the wrong place. And I just think if we had had a video of a person snuffing the life out of a dog for 8 minutes, the whole planet would have been in uproar over that. You killed that poor animal for 8 minutes, you choked it out. They would have been up in arms about a dog. Mm-hmm. But this is a man who we saw in real time just be killed, and crickets. So I think you need to be just as vocal as you would be. Imagine if it had been your pet. Just be that vocal. Just imagine if it had been your dog that you walk to the park every day and you don't get harassed for doing it. Just imagine if it had been your dog. And how would you react? Who would you call? Who would you write a letter to? What TV station would you call and say, this is outrageous? Just do the same thing. Pretend it was your pet.
That's to me seems so paltry is the word, maybe? I'm not sure, but so little, so like that we're comparing the life of a man to a pet. And yet you're saying it, I'm hearing it, and I'm going, gosh, that's the reality for so many people, right? We're not angry enough.
Let me tell you something about, because being in Atlanta, where I was born and raised, and we've got all this rioting going on. And when you live here in the city of Atlanta, and my friends and I have been talking about this was not normal for Atlanta. Atlanta really, we protest, but it's not like this. And there's proof, I mean, it's coming out more and more that the people that have come here and burned down, first of all, let me tell you, Rebecca, when we saw that they were attacking the CNN building, we knew something's not right. Because that's about one of the only stations that'll give Black people a fair shot at anything in the media. Right. So it's like, they're attacking CNN. No, that's our friend. That's Ted Turner, He's like, so something wasn't right about this. And then I was like, seriously, I'm just telling you, Rebecca, because we're talking, I have Black friends, I know. It's like the people that were really doing a lot of the physical stuff starting were white people. It's like something's not right about this. And what we are finding, there are organizations that, Dr. King had the same thing. He was having peaceful protests, but the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, intentionally put disruptors in there to discount his work. And the same thing has happened today. This violent stuff, that's not being, in my opinion, started and initiated by the Black people in the city. I think they got caught up and were kind of naive and stuff and just joined in. But this is not how Black people act in protests in this city. I know Atlanta, and we've had a lot of protests here. It's not in the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. You know, it is not in his spirit at all, and all the other civil rights leaders that have come out of this city. So we knew something wasn't right. So we're just telling young people, don't be deceived. Don't get caught up in that. We need to protest, but we need to do it in a manner that has, you know, some real outcome. Yes, you're expressing your anger and all that, but there's an appropriate way to do it. We're not in support of tearing buildings down, everything. We want to tear a system down. But, you know, trying to tear down buildings and all of that is just futile. It's futile. And it's just going to lead to more unnecessary death. And it's almost like people don't even care. You know, that's really sad when you get to the point where I don't even care if I die anymore. Well, you know, your mama cares, okay? Your parents care. So, but people are frustrated and they get caught up in that. So the thing about protests, and just look at it, and the thing about protests, Rebecca, now this is what's pissing me off about it, seriously. And when you have people, what state was that? White people protesting because of the shutdown, that they can't go to the, I don't know wherever they want to go, but they went to the state capitol bearing rifles and guns on the front steps of the Capitol. Folks, see, that's just your white privilege right there. You get to stand here with boy, those have been some Black people up there. If we had come to Atlanta in a peaceful protest with open arms, oh, they would have been shot down. It's like, seriously? And you know what? Number 40, what's his 45? Trump says to the mayor or the governor or whoever, he sent the tweet, make a deal with them, you know, go light on them. What did he say?
These are good people.
Yeah, he said these are good people.
Right.
But these people in Atlanta were thugs.
Right.
If you call Black people thugs one more time, just one more again.
Yeah. Help us understand privilege. What is that? What is white privilege?
It's an advantage or privilege you have that really wasn't earned. You're really just born with because of the color of your skin. It's just because of the color of your skin. And I mean, in most recent times, the privilege that you get to express your legal rights to carry arms and carry it to a public building, and people just let you, no interference. Boy, I'm just telling you, if you can't see that, how that would have been treated differently if it had been Black people walking around with guns. I mean, your privilege of jogging in your own neighborhood, just taking your jog, and no one questions you. No one questions you, do you supposed to be in here? Or you know, what's your address? You get to take your jog. You get to walk your dog and tell someone, you know, you should put your dog on a leash. They don't call the police and say, oh, this white person's threatening me because she wants me to put my dog on a leash. That's your privilege. And I'm telling you, and let me tell you, white folk, you have it. And it doesn't mean you're wealthy. It has nothing to do with economics, okay? It's not about, you worked hard. Yes, you've worked hard, but you also have some privilege along the way because of the color of your skin. That's systemic racism, folks. That's privilege. And I tell people, you can't give it up. As I tell white people, don't feel guilty about this privilege you have. Use it in a righteous and just way.
Yeah.
Use it. You can't get rid of it. It's just, you didn't ask for it. It just came.
Right.
When you were born in white skin, use it. Use your voice.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I think that's so powerful because, you know, I think a lot of white people sit there and they go, well, so I didn't ask for this, here I am. And we just sit in guilt instead of using it. And I'll tell you, yesterday, Daryl, I had such an interesting experience. There was some rioting going on in where I am in Greenville, South Carolina, late last night. And I walked up, and this is, again, feeling my white privilege, right? That I'm walking to a riot because I am a woman. And in this case, that gives me an advantage. And I am white, and that gives me a huge advantage. And I walked up the side street, And a cop, was sitting there and he says, I don't think you want to go up there. Now I'm walking with my partner who's a male. And honestly, that made me feel safer. And I walk up, who's also white, right? So I'm walking up and we walk up and my partner is walking like right up and I'm like, dude, I was like, you know what? He's not threatening. He's not threatening because he's Irish, right? He's white as the day is long. And I watched as the police escorted out 2 Black men and they walked them down the street nearly past me with 6 policemen staring at them. And I took that moment to say, wait a second. And I walked up and I started walking towards the cops and they turned their back on me. And I was like, that is white privilege, right? Because here I am, I'm like, I'm not a threat.
No,
I'm not a threat. So for people like me, what can we do? What is it that we can do with that, with cops turning their backs because I'm not threatening? What is it that we can do to help heal, to help bring some peace, to help bring justice?
I think that's what we said after 911. If you see something, say something. If you see something, say something. Bring it to that officer's attention that what you just witnessed, that I just walked up here and I really didn't get a look. I didn't get a glance. I got some assistance actually, but 2 other people just walked by and they got stared down. And you might not even be aware of it, but I just want you to know what I just observed. Just speak up. When you say, you see something, say something. Just use your voice. It's not that difficult because you're not going to be, seriously, you're going to walk out safely. They might think you're whack, you're whatever, but you're going to live. Exactly. No one's going to arrest you for making that comment. No one's going to push you against the wall and pin you down just because you said, this is just on officer, this is what I observed. Store owner, this is just what I've observed. Just want you to know what I observed. Just start speaking up when you see it. Because you see it. Well, maybe you don't sometimes because you're so oblivious. But when you're conscious, like you are, Rebecca, you got to start being aware. Mm-hmm. So just become more aware and say something when you see it.
I'm unaware of it so frequently. I try and be as aware as I can. But this is the thing with privilege, right? We don't see it. It's a tailwind. Right. We don't see it. We don't feel it until it's so blatant and so in our face. So thank you. Yeah.
And another thing that I tell people, to white folk, when people of color tell you that they've been hurt or they feel marginalized, just believe what they say. Just believe them. Seriously, stop. Because I tell people, I don't know why this is coming up, but they say you're playing the race card. Folks, those are the cards we're dealt every day. Every day. It's not a card, it's like a deck, okay? It's not a race card, it's a deck, because every day when you're walking in the skin like this, race affects everything I do. Everything. It intersects with everything. Can't ever take it out of any part of my life. So, don't go to this where they're playing the race card. We're playing the hands we've been dealt. That's all. What else do we have? Right. What else?
It's funny. I had someone come to me after a diversity inclusion talk that I gave. A Black man came up to me and said, "Thank you for talking about race because I can't. Because I, as a Black man, when I talk about race, people think I'm playing the race card." And I was like, wow, that's how people feel when I'm talking about women. But the problem here is that I don't think I have a voice for Black people or for people of color in general, because it's not my place to be speaking for your experience. Mm-hmm. That's where I felt, but I don't know what can I do? What should I do? Because I think there's a lot of people like me that are going, we want to help, we want to be allies, but we also need to shut up and just listen.
Right. We don't really, honestly, we don't need a lot of white people talking to people of color about this. White people need to talk to white people. That's why, when I do my work, Rebecca, to tell you the truth, every time I do my work, it's cross-racial facilitation. I'm going to have somebody white there with me because there's some things white people need to say to white people, and because they won't hear from me. It'll be the same message, but they just won't hear it. And I get that. I get that. And so I think one of the things white people can really do is just talk to each other, talk to your family members and your children, teach them. Because it's one thing, and I know this from doing this work for so long, Rebecca, I'm telling you the truth. You know, Black families and people of color, now that I deal with all kinds of people of color, we all have the conversation. We talk about race all the time, all the time. And what I'm finding, white people is just something you don't talk about. And again, that's another example of white privilege.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You don't have to. But
Yeah,
Black
the norm.
right, we're normal. We just, we're just normal people.
This is just our world. What?
But it's something that Black families, so I tell white families, start talking, having the conversation about race. Have the conversation about race with your children, with your friends. Yeah, it might not be comfortable and uneasy. And I tell you, because I've been in situations, I lived in Oregon, I lived in Oregon. That's why I was living when I met you. But, a Black person, and it happens to white people too, they bring up race and it's like people scatter. People like, no, don't want to talk about that. You just
Everybody's scared.
Right.
Yeah, everybody's scared. And I think that's like, so that's maybe the question is how, what do you say to people who are afraid to have the conversation? Because I know I've been there before and I'm like, I'm going to screw up. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to offend somebody. Like, how do we get over that?
If I was advising white people on how to have this conversation with the white people, I would acknowledge them the uncomfort, the discomfort. I would say to my white friend, if I were white and you were my girlfriend, just talking, I'll say, and I'm trying to talk to her, say, Rebecca, there's just some things stirring up in me, and I don't even know how to talk about it, but I want to talk about this race thing. I just acknowledge my uncomfort or discomfort with it. I just acknowledge that. Listen, I'm struggling with this thing. And if I feel more comfortable and someone else is struggling with it, I would ask them as a friend, Rebecca, why is this uncomfortable for us? And I wouldn't just say you. I say, why is it uncomfortable to talk about this? Just to so like you be that person's ally right now. They're at this level of understanding of this stuff and comfort, very low. Why are we uncomfortable with it? Just start the conversation there. Well, we never talked about it. Well, why didn't we talk about it?
Right.
Well, I don't know, because it's just, well, how did it get to be that we were normal? Other people, just keep asking questions as opposed, because accusing people, that hasn't worked too well.
Right.
But I ask a lot of questions when I do my work. Well, why do you think this? Where did that come from? Just help people come to their own realization of, wow, I never even had thought, because I hadn't had to think about it. Maybe that is part of a privilege I've had. I didn't even realize it. But accusing white people and stuff, that's never been effective, especially coming from, and I tell people in my training, I tell them this, I'm not going to spend 1 ounce of time of my life or breath trying to say that you are a racist. I don't even care. The truth is, you and I, whether we want to or not, are part of a system of racism, and it's affecting you and me. Both of us are being affected by it, and we're all playing a part in some way, but that's the truth. So I don't care if you're racist or not, because people want to, I get what white people say, that's like the worst thing you can call them.
And this is another thing that I hear all the time. I don't see color. Can you address that for me, please? Because
well,
come on,
Rebecca. Well, I understand where that comes from, because that was taught to white people. What, back in the 80s or something? Don't see color.
I grew up in a family that was well-intending, and it was like, we don't see color in this family. I was like, and that's how I grew up.
Right.
And it was like a loving space. And then I started like, wait a second.
Well, and I would say, if you don't see color, my first question is, well, why not? What if you did? What if you did see color? What would be different? Right. Well, if I saw color, then you might, I don't know, people get just stumped with that when I just ask them, well, what if you did? Right. What would be different? Well, and so then it leads into, well, do you think people are having the same experience? Yeah, no, they're not. Chris Rock, I think, asked his audience, if you could be the richest man in the world or something like that, but you had to be black. How many of y'all would change position? No.
No, I'm good.
Like, even if you're the richest black person in the world, but you had to be black.
Yeah.
Folks were like,
yeah, and the funny part there, I think, and you know, this is me being fearless because I'm like, I don't know, maybe, but my guess is most of his audience was black, and so most of his audience was like, oh no, we know that experience, we don't want that. Whereas I bet there might have been a white person there going, really? No, not.
yeah.
Again, that's the privilege, right? That's not. I don't know. It sounds okay. Could it be okay?
That's the privilege. That's the privilege. Going back to George Floyd again.
Yes.
Watching what happened to him. This is other white cops standing, how complicit they were. That no one said anything. Well, actually, there's some, I don't know if you heard this, but there's body cam recordings. There was an officer saying something like, we should change his position or something like that. Someone did speak up, and the cop, whatever his name is, had his knee on him.
Doesn't matter.
But you know what? That to me probably, I mean, the whole thing is disturbing, but just to see the other cops stand around and let him do it.
Right. And that's who I think so many people don't want to be. We don't want to be complicit in this. We don't want to be sitting back and saying, all right, well, I'm white, I guess I can't do anything. You know,
right.
We don't want to be that silent voice. And yet.
Rebecca, when you look throughout history, there's a pattern. Whenever any significant social changes happen, it's always been a combination of the blood, sweat, and tears of the oppressed, joined with the power and privilege of the minority, or the privileged, I should say. Those two things, it's like, but the thing is, people are tired of losing blood over this. If you think about it, Dr. King's work, the civil rights shift, Black people have been dying. Well, you know the history of this. I don't have to tell your people.
No, tell because that's the thing. Like I know my history. I know the version that I've read, but
okay. Let me tell you, the Mississippi River, what were this, Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman, the three civil rights, one white, one Jewish, one Black. When they went, people in Mississippi, you know, the history of Mississippi of racism, folks, this has been happening. The federal government didn't get involved until those three, but the white kid came up missing. When that white kid came up missing, the federal government said, oh, we're going to Mississippi and do an investigation. Rebecca, what people don't know, the Mississippi River, they dragged that river looking for those three. So many Black bodies were pulled out of that river. So this wasn't anything new. But when one of the privileged got hurt, the blood, sweat, and the tears of Black folk for generations. But one person that was white came in. And that's when you saw the shift in the civil rights. That's when you saw the shift. But other than that, the federal government's like, well, we don't care what's happening down there in the South.
Okay.
That one white person had to die.
Yep.
One white life got the federal government involved in Mississippi. Outside of that, they were silent. KKK had been lynching and throwing people in that river for years. And that's why there's a song. I can't think of it, but I used to sing it in the Mississippi River. But I don't think people really hear the story of what they found when they dragged that river. Dozens of Black bodies just thrown in the river. Nobody cared. So that's why I say, white people, we've got to come together on this thing. We've had enough blood, sweat, and tears of people of color. And you saw George Floyd's blood, his sweat and tears that took his life. But it should have been some white cops saying, stop. Just stand up to this guy. Stop being piss-ass cowards. stop. But nobody did. And they, so to me, they're just as complicit and guilty of a crime. All those that stood around in silence, they're just, in my opinion, they're just as guilty. They should have been arrested too.
Yeah.
So, because this thing, folks, we got to the point where you can't be on the sidelines. In my opinion, you've got to be on this side of this side. It's really no more gray in this area. It's no more gray. It's sort of like going back to the 60s. Another pivot in the 60s was when, and it's amazing how media plays a part in it. But nobody, the world, when they saw Bull Connor pull those dogs and water hoses on children,
yep.
That
going on how long?
Right, it was nothing new.
Right.
But when media showed it on television, the world said, "What are they doing over there in America?" And that's when Johnson came in. We got the Civil Rights Act passed and all that stuff. But it's sort of like how media, it's like, it's almost a repeat of history. Now that people have phones, this isn't anything new. This stuff has been happening, but now people are being caught with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't, it's something about this, because you've seen other video, people, black folk running away from the police and being shot down. They're just running. But there was something about this one, because I think the intensity of the 8.5 minutes.
Hands in pockets, kneeling. Like, it's an image, I am telling you, it is an image that will define a generation. And I hope it defines it for the right reasons, because it's painful. Yeah. It's painful. Yep.
And once you've seen, you can't unsee.
Right. So how do we go, what steps do we take from here? Outside of the protests, which I think are super important, outside of the rioting, outside of everything, all of the anger and energy that's being poured into, marching on the streets right now. What's our next step? How do we prevent this from ever happening again?
Well, again, I think white people should write letters to their mayors, their city council people, their police chiefs, expressing their outrage over this. You got to be vocal. You should, if you can, participate in peaceful protests. When it starts getting whack, get out, but show up, be a voice, and listen. You don't have to go in. I just think your physical presence sometimes, you don't have to do a lot of talking. Just, I'm here. I stand for George Floyd. If that's just a phrase. Well, why are you at this protest? I stand for George Floyd. As he laid on the ground, I stand for him. Just your physical presence means a lot. It means a lot. You don't have to say a bunch. Not a lot of talking. People are really kind of tired of the talk and don't even really want to hear it right now, honestly. Don't even want to hear it. But just, I stand with George Floyd.
I still feel very, very white in asking, like, I'm calling all my black friends and I'm like, what do I do? And that's unfair too, right? Like, hey, you have this color skin. What should we be doing here? And I hate that, but I think it's important to have those fearless conversations, even if the answer from some of my friends is stop calling me to represent my entire race. Right? Okay, got it. Thank you. These are important conversations to be having, and the more we can reduce our fear and have the conversation, I think the better off we're all going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, you need to have those conversations with your children.
Yeah.
I think that is so key. You've got to start talking with your children. You can't, because if you don't do this, they're just gonna grow up with the same old stuff that we're normal.
Right.
We're normal.
Right. Yeah.
And so anything that's not you, it's not normal. That message just gonna start having conversations with your families about it. And of course, yeah, you'll be ostracized sometimes. You got the uncle that's just total racist and doesn't even try to hide it. But take a stand. Let your kids see that my mom and dad took a stand. And just Start, because I tell people, Rebecca, you can't change the world, but you can influence your world. The circles that you have, you can cause a ripple. You really can. You know, your one stance might not affect thousands of people, but you can have one stance and affect a neighbor, maybe a child, a family member, just that one little ripple. Just think of it as ripples. You're not going to make a big splash in this thing. Oh, you know,
Yeah.
very few people make a big splash in the world, but we can all create a ripple.
Yeah. And imagine if that ripple had hit that cop or any of those cops, right? Then we have.
Right. What if that ripple? What if that had been your uncle at last Thanksgiving dinner? You just planted some seeds in his brain about race and how we people of color being treated differently. Something maybe he would have revealed some of his true feelings and thoughts, but you could have had a chance to maybe plant a little seed in his brain that would have affected the work that he was doing.
I think that's huge. No, I think that's huge because your point is well taken. Like, what can I do? And I think so many of us sit back and are like, well, I'm just one person. What can I do? I'm not going to do much. No, you as an individual have all of the power to influence the people around you. And that is all any of us can do. And if everybody's doing that.
Rebecca, you know what? Every tsunami started with a ripple.
I love that. I love that. It's true.
Yep. Every tsunami started with a ripple.
It's true. Daryl, thank you so much for this conversation. I cannot thank you enough. I know things are especially hard right now. I won't say hard right now, but especially hard right now.
Yeah.
And I thank you for your voice. I thank you for your fearlessness. I thank you for continuing the work that you're doing because it is so important. And anything you want to leave our audiences with? Yes, sir.
One more thing. This just came up. If you have influence, your listeners have influence, just think about this. Some people have it, even with COVID-19 going on, some people are going to work, but believe me, Black people that are going to work right now are taking this with them. There's some emotion. If you have influence to tell somebody, we need to address this at the workplace. You really need to address it. I did this when I was the chief diversity officer up in Multnomah County because it was Trayvon Martin's death. Trayvon's Martin, I'll never forget this in my life. I was living in Oregon and I went into a grocery store. I was the only Black person in the grocery store. This is right like the day after Trayvon's death. And I remember Rebecca going in that store, looking around, not seeing another Black person in there. And I never felt so alone in my life. I just felt so alone. And I was thinking other Black people at work probably feeling the same thing. And we needed time to come together. And so what I did, we did it really quickly. We put together an event during the lunch hour where employees could come and just be together. It was open to everybody, but I was very honest about it. This is a place for Black people to come and heal and help each other and support one another, but it's open to everybody. White folk, Latino, Asian, everybody's invited. But let's be clear, this is here to support Black people right now because we're really hurting. And because people were wondering, why isn't George Zimmerman arrested? Why isn't he charged? So I brought in a person from the Civil Rights Division from the state of Oregon who just happened to be a good friend of mine, a white guy, and he brought in an attorney that could come and tell us the legal ramifications of what it takes to arrest him and just to educate us. But so we got some education on it, but then it was just like an open mic and people just stood up and just to get it out. Yeah. And I tell you, the white presence there, white people really didn't do a lot of talking, but just your presence saying, I support you, that meant a lot. So just think about this. If you have influence, just know people are coming to this at work. And I think it needs to be addressed in the workplace because people are going to work with this in them. Yeah, that's an elephant in the room. You need to address it. Use your influence to see if you can do something like that because it's real and it's going to work. It's just not out there in the streets. People taking this to work.
Yep. No, that's a really good point. It's heavy. It's sitting in people's hearts. It's on people's minds, and it is Yeah, it needs to be addressed. I think that's a big piece is being fearless enough to say, let's have the conversation about that elephant sitting in the room, because it's there and we can ignore it. And if we ignore it, we're doing the exact same thing that we've done for hundreds and hundreds of years and saying it's unimportant, or it's not worth acknowledging, or it's not.
Right.
It's so, and even if, and I know when I have conversations like this, I screw up. I screw up all the time.
Yes.
But if you can start them with, please assume positive intent. I think this is an important discussion to have. I'm going to do my best. And please correct me when I screw up so that I can learn. That's all I need to do.
Yeah, that's what I call a detour. When white people say, well, you know, I might say the wrong thing. Get over the fear.
Yeah.
Just get over that. Just acknowledge it, you know. I told I'm going to screw this thing up. Well, everybody does at some point, you know. Nobody bats 1,000 at this thing. Nobody, no one.
It's true.
So don't let that be your excuse or your detour not to speak up because you don't want to say the wrong thing. Folks, trust me, that's a detour.
Yeah.
Just get out of it. No, just say something. Just say something, and allow Black folk to correct you. Seriously, because seriously, Rebecca. Oh my God, somebody said something. It was a white person. They were really, I mean, their heart was in the right place in this. But he talked about, you know, he didn't say people of color. He said the colored people. Oh God, like the colored people. Because I was reading this thing like, yes. The colored people. Well, he tried.
And you know what? Good for him, because he will never forget that moment. He will never get it wrong again. He was brave. He put it out there. He was corrected. He's like, got it.
Right. It was like he was so good. And he got there, like, but you know. Yep. So yeah, nobody bats 1,000. Nobody bats 1,000.
So, thank you. Thank you for being a voice in this. Thank you for being a voice for people like me that don't understand exactly what we should be doing. And thank you for your willingness to be fearless in this and have these conversations.
Rebecca, my pleasure. It's good to see you. And thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for the work that you continue to do. So it's good to know you're out there doing it. All right.
Love you. Take care of yourself.
Love you.
And your family. Be safe. We'll talk soon. Thank you again.
Okay.
Appreciate it. All right. Be well. Bye now.